Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 791B, and today's date is October 14th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Russia and Syria are preparing a major push to retake the country. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the U.S. government central bankers, their objective is really to control the people. They want full control. Now, we understand they have the control of creating the currency. They have control of the banking systems. They have control of the corporate media. And they don't have control of the internet. Now, they're trying to do this in many different ways to control what we are seeing. They're using the TPP, the UN, the FCC, and they're even pushing corporations to control what we see when we do searches, like Google, for instance. Google right now is creating something called the Knowledge Vault. And Google believes that screening and censoring information requests by the users will help avoid, those websites that are full of misinformation, most likely mine, which most likely where they're targeting, or any other type of new media, alternative media type of website. And they don't want these sites to show up on the top of their searches. So they're creating something called the Knowledge Vault. And the search algorithms are going to refer to the Knowledge Vault. And what they're going to do is they're going to sort through the actual content of websites to determine whether or not they fit the official narrative for the particular idea or concept being presented. Now, what is the official narrative? Well, pretty much whatever the government says, whatever the government agencies say, that's going to be the official narrative. So if I am saying something that is not in line with the government, guess what? My site is misinformation. And basically what they're going to do is they're not going to show that portion up top. They're going to show the sites that conform to the government views. So Google right now, they do have the power to rewrite history. And it's not just to the alternative media. It's funny because I go into Google and I do a search like, U.S. stock market declines. And I look at the images that show up. It only shows Chinese markets declining. And they don't show pictures here in the U.S. Very, very few. But most of them are the Chinese markets. Now, we've had the market drop, 800 points, 1,000 points. But that doesn't show up. And what they're doing right now is they're going to kind of skew everything that we're seeing, which we all should be concerned about because we're getting misinformation from the government because we know they use propaganda. Let's take, for instance, what's happening in Syria right now. I mean, we talked about the Toyota trucks way before anyone even pointed it out. We said they're from the CIA, the State Department. We said the Islamic State was gaining ground because the U.S. was not bombing the Islamic State because they were used as their proxy army. And this all turned out to be true. Now, if we go back many months ago or a year ago, that would be misinformation according to the official narrative. But it turned out to be true. So what happens at this point? Well, they're going to stick with the government official narrative. So they're going to be skewing everything because they don't want people to see a different point of view than what the government is showing them. And this is what they're trying to do. Now, we know they're trying to spy on all of us, and they want a way into the encrypted information. Now, the FBI was out there, Obama was out there, his administration was out there. They were trying to create backdoors to get access into, the iPhone, Android, many of the devices. A lot of the companies are holding steady, saying, no, it's encrypted. we can't give you this information. We can't give you the method or the key because it's private to the people. And the FBI, the NSA are continually pushing. So now they said, you know something, we're not even going to go, we don't even want a backdoor. Forget that. What are they doing? Well, basically, they're doing a frontal assault. They're going to put pressure on companies to give them access on a case-by-case basis. So we need access to all of these people. Please give it to us. And if you don't, there could be problems. There could be fines. There could be anything. And right now, what they're doing is they're basically, pushing companies into doing what they want. And just asking for it is a violation of our rights. I mean, this is coming from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They have no warrant, and they just want the information. Now remember, they're trying to pass CISA, where the companies would automatically hand over their information and they wouldn't be liable. But that hasn't passed yet. But they want to spy on everyone, and this encryption is getting in their way. And encryption is almost like the keys to your house, the keys to your safe, the keys to your car. It's like giving a copy to the government and trusting them they won't come into your home to look around whenever they want. And this is really what they want to do with your information. You don't let them into your house now. Why do you let them into your private business or your electronic business? No one should. It's a violation of our rights. Now, out in England, the GCHQ is now legally allowed to collect and read the private communications of MPs and lords from a court ruling. They overruled a decade-old rule which forbade snooping on Westminster politicians. And Green MPs Carolyn Lucas and Jenny Jones condemned the ruling as deeply worrying. This judgment is a body blow for parliamentary democracy. My constituents have a right to know that their communication with me aren't subject to blanket surveillance, yet this ruling suggests they have no such protection. Basically, they want to know what everyone is doing. And again, they use this for many different things. Blackmail, to understand what's going on. If they're going to push an idea or a law a certain way, they have the ability to know about it and to change it. This is what happens when we're in a fascist country. In England, the United States, where corporation, government are intertwined, and basically the rights of the people are basically thrown out. And we are starting to see this all across Europe, in Canada, in Australia, in the United States, in England. And as time goes on, it's getting worse and worse. Because at this point, they don't care. They don't care about anything except for themselves. They're taking their orders from the central banks, from corporations, from foreign governments, and they can care less about the people at this point in time. Now, we understand the report for MH17 came out yesterday, and of course the timing was absolutely perfect. Russia is in Syria right now, and they had to get something in there to show that Russia was responsible for downing MH17, which is not true whatsoever. They just said it was a Russian Buk missile. They didn't say Russia did this. They didn't say the rebels did this. Actually, the report showed absolutely nothing. And the findings that are coming out from this report aren't even that good. I mean, they're showing it was a Buk missile, but Russia hasn't used this model in about 15 years. Ukraine has. Ukraine still has it. And what we see is that the Russian company did experiments where they actually exploded a Buk missile, and they found that, yes, it was the older model. Kiev has it, and we have the proof. But the Dutch investigators didn't want to hear about it whatsoever. They didn't care. Now, Russia has invited the interested countries to join the Russian-led probe into the MH17 crash and provided the Dutch Commission the records of all conversations between the Russian air traffic controllers. But right now, the Dutch investigators, the Dutch Commission, is not paying attention whatsoever. So we can see this was being used as propaganda to point the finger at Russia. Now, there were cables that were leaked by a U.S. Army whistleblower, Chelsea Manning, which revealed an apparent plot by the U.S. government to assassinate Bolivian President Evo Morales and overthrow his administration. Now, according to the cables, the plot to orchestrate a coup or carry out an assassination against Morales came after years of resistance by the Morales government to the United States and the Latin American agenda. The Bolivian government is continuing a formal investigation into the allegation, despite, of course, the denials by the U.S. government, which they always do. But the question is, why were they trying to overthrow Morales? Well, the WikiLeaks cable show the U.S. escalated the attempts to put pressure on Morales and his government over several years, but Morales resisted U.S. directives and continued with his plan to nationalize the fossil fuels industry and move away from independence on foreign aid and international loans. Moving your natural resources away from the United States, moving away from international loans. This is the problem. The cable suggests that starting from 2007, the U.S. government began providing aid to the Media Luna region of Bolivia, which is controlled by Morales' opposition. A U.S. aid report from 2007 stated that its Office of Transition Initiatives had approved 101 grants for $4 million to help departmental governments operate more strategically. Funds also went to a local indigenous group that were opposed to Morales' vision for indigenous communities. A year later, lo and behold, the residents of Media Luna were rebelling against Morales' government in clashes that led to 20 deaths. And a coup seemed imminent, but it was all scrapped. Why? Because the South American governments declared their support for the Bolivia's democratically elected government. They stepped in, they supported Morales, and this whole thing kind of fell apart. But this is the same thing the U.S. government does in all the other countries. They use these small opposition groups, they fund them, they bring in agent provocateurs, they fan it up, and they try to get a rebellion going. And we've seen this in Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq. They tried it in Syria, didn't work out. This is why they had the Civil War. Ukraine, we saw it there. Thailand, Egypt. They tried in China, Russia, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina. So this is definitely what the United States does. And we see a pattern here. And it's the same pattern in every country. Now, we understand we had warnings in Chad, Cameroon, South Africa, Libya, that terrorists are coming. And we saw a terrorist attack in Chad, and we've seen one in Cameroon. And now the president is out there saying, we will be sending 300 military personnel to Cameroon to conduct airborne intelligence. And the troops will stay in Cameroon until their support is no longer needed. And soon we'll see more troops going into Chad. We'll see terrorist attacks in South Africa. And then we have Libya. And out in Libya, they're still telling them, listen, The two governments need to unite. They need to agree on this peace deal, or ISIS is coming. So you better hurry up and do this. And we're going to have to watch that date of October 20th. That is the deadline. So anytime after that, we might see something occur in Libya. We see that al-Baghdadi did not die. He was injured, and the CIA has picked him up and moved him to a hospital in Turkey. And we know he's a Mossad agent. He's working for the CIA and Israel. One of the coordinators of the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. We see right now Russia has conducted 500 airstrikes against the Islamic State in 2 weeks. And they've hit command centers, training camps, armed depots, comm centers, explosive factories, and other key targets. In 2 weeks. And what has the United States done? Absolutely nothing in a year. We see NATO is having military drills called Trident Juncture. And these are the largest the alliance has held in 20 years. They're holding them in the Mediterranean, 60 vessels, 27 member states. And they said, don't worry. There is no reason to fear any type of incidents in what is going on in Syria. None whatsoever. Don't worry about it. There are reports that Russia is sending an aircraft carrier to Syria, the Kuznetsov. And this is the only aircraft carrier that Russia has. And then Russia has come out saying, no, we are not sending this to Syria. This aircraft carrier will head to the Barrent Sea. So we're having two different reports here. We'll have to watch where this aircraft carrier is going. We are also getting reports that Iran is sending in thousands of troops to Syria. Now remember, Iran and Syria, they have an alliance, an agreement, that Iran would back them up if they're in trouble with an invasion. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And we see that Syria, Iran, Russia, and China are helping out, root out the terrorists, and to push them back. We see right now the U.S. and Russia, they're going to hold talks before Russia and Assad go in and attack Aleppo. You have to remember, this is where the proxy army has many of its personnel. And the United States says, okay, wait, we got to talk before you go into this area. And the United States is continually out there saying, listen, you're hitting the Free Syrian Army, you're hitting the Free Syrian Army, you're not hitting the Islamic State. So Russia said, okay, let's take our intel and your intel and see if it matches up with where the Islamic State is, and we won't hit the Free Syrian Army. The U.S. backed out. They said, no, we don't need to talk about that. So what we're seeing right now is the United States doesn't know what to do. So they're coming up with all these different things. One of the things is, listen, we will help Russia go after the Islamic State under one condition: if they abandon Assad, because then they don't need the Islamic State and they can help and go after that, because they know eventually they'll go right after Assad if Russia's not supporting him. Well, I don't think Putin's going to do that. We see that the U.S. is going to adjust their aid program the way they are dealing with the rebel group, the moderates. So no longer are they going to train, they're going to create commanders, and they're going to bring in military assets, like the 50 tons of ammunition, which contain grenades, which contained rocket launchers. And what they're doing at this point, because they realize the Islamic State, the proxy army, is being destroyed by Russia, they decided to do the old switcheroo. The Free Syrian Army is no longer the Free Syrian Army. The moderates are no longer the moderates. They're now broken into two different groups. One is the Syrian Arab Coalition, and the other one is the Syrian Democratic Force. And guess what they're doing? They're taking the Islamic State and saying, no, that's not the Islamic State now. That's the Syrian Democratic Force. Oh, no, that's the Syrian Arab Coalition. And these two forces are our new forces right now. We don't know where the moderates went, and we don't know where the Islamic State went. And basically, we're just renaming everything right now. And this is what they're using to stop Russia from hitting the rest of the proxy army. I don't think this is going to work. The Syrian Democratic Forces, they are made up of Kurds, Arabs, and the rest. Basically what they're saying, it's the paid mercenaries mixed in with the Kurds to create this force. So you can see what they're doing. Their backs are against the wall. They don't know what to do. Because if they let this go on any longer, their entire proxy army is destroyed, gone. So they're renaming everything and saying, no, they're not part of it. This is our new group now. Don't touch them. Now, there's a cybersecurity expert out there, and he is saying we in America should be afraid, very afraid right now. And what he's talking about cyber attacks that seize control of industrial control systems. These ubiquitous hidden computers have gradually and quietly been put in charge of all manner of critical infrastructure, including nuclear power plants, the grid, water, gas pipelines, refineries, air traffic control, trains, factories, you name it. They don't have screens, they don't have keyboards. Most people don't even know they exist. But they are embedded in low-level processes. They are everywhere because they create tremendous efficiencies and cost savings. And because they exist, almost as an afterthought, they have no antivirus, they have no protection, and they could be already infected with malicious software. And he's saying that China, Russia, North Korea, if you notice, they named all the same players, have been probing these low-level computer systems to see if there's vulnerabilities. Well, if they don't have antivirus, they don't have any type of protection, they're completely open. And basically what he's saying is all they need to do is hit these low-level systems and they can take out an entire system with a blink of an eye without anyone even noticing it is happening. And it would take weeks upon weeks to figure out what happened. So we can see what is going on here. And we know eventually the United States government central bankers are going to push a false flag event. We see things are accelerating all around the world. I mean, I remember when I started the reporting and I said the U.S. is moving military assets all over the place. The first was the Pacific to contain China. Everyone called me crazy. That's ridiculous. And now we see, a year and a half later, or maybe it's 2 years now, we're in Eastern Europe, Middle East, the Pacific, Africa, and now it's right in front of our faces where we see all the military assets being moved and troops being moved into these areas. And we can see war is coming. Now we hear a lot of people talking about war. Going back, years, I was just talking about war. Now everyone is talking about war. And we know war is definitely coming because this is their out. This is the United States government central bankers out from a collapsing system. And they have to build the story of what is about to happen here. And this is why they're continually funneling in all the propaganda about the grid, the water supply, the banking system being hit by cyber attacks. This is why our government employees were out there telling us about cyber 9/11, a cyber Pearl Harbor. And over time, they're building the story, so everyone understands when the lights go out, when the banking system freezes up. We understand who the players are. We understand why this happened. The people understand why we need to go to war. This is what they've been building up on. This is what they've been using. And they do it very slowly, very methodically, over and over and over, until they have everyone convinced. And then all of a sudden, they let it happen because they can't keep the system going. And they know it is time to push that event. And we're going to see it happen. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.